There we go. All right, guys, welcome back. We are going to finish up on what we were doing here. Seems like James got back to me right at the right time, so apparently now he'll be able to kind of let you guys know that you're gonna be, that you're able to watch the stream and stuff like that. So let's go ahead and get started. All right. So, first thing we're going to do here. We need to work on getting our objects to synchronize. So we're only going to have one-way synchronization at the moment. So the way we need to do that is... here's our net player, but that's not what we're looking for particularly. We are looking for a net entity or a net object. And I'm pretty sure that is the network game behavior. Yes. Perfect. So what we do is we need to have two things on our entity. We need to be able to track position and scale, or position in rotation. We're not particularly worried about scale just yet. So what we're going to do is we are going to go to our entity handler, and this is going to be on entity moved which we're going to pass back a vector3 vector3, and this will be on entity rotated, and this will also be a vector3. So now we need a move read and a rotate read. So we'll do the move read first. Okay. So we're just going to do move first. James, you don't think this is the cool part? Cool. Well, the sad part is more people turned up for the coding streams than they did for like the mapping stream and the UI stream and Alright, so in our game client, we're going to have to do something interesting, and I'll show you what I mean. In our game client, we need an update. An update frequency. So we're going to need to set that. So we're going to set that to, we'll do 0.1. So I think this is every millisecond. So what we're going to do is we're going to say current time. Oops. Did I put float? I did. Alright, so this is how this is going to work. In our entity handler, we need our ID, and then we need a float x packet dot refloat y and z. So of course we need to discard the packet if it's us. So we're going to reconstruct our position based on that. Then we're going to send out the position and the ID of every to every one of our entities that have the on entity move thing. So then we're gonna say if this dot object ID is equal to ID, then we're gonna update it. So what we need to do is in our entity handler, our entity manager, sorry, we need to put a thing on this. And what we're also going to do is we're going to say alright, so the two things that we need to do is we need to get a reference to our game object here. Then we need to so then we're going to take our net. We are going to set our object ID to the ID, and we are going to set net object. And what that is going to do is we don't want to re-update an object if it's a network object. So essentially, when we spawn in, so it's going to spawn in up here, of course. When we spawn in that object, we don't want every game client to update their position of that game object. We only want to update the player's position because the player is the only one that is going to be moving. So in terms of that, we're almost done. All we really have to do is we have to write out our packet, which is going to be packet.write float data 0. Then we data 1, data 2. Easy as that. Although we need to pass the object ID. So we're going to write int data 0. Then this will be 1, 2, 3. Yeah. Okay. So we need to set the object ID. So this dot object ID. Perfect. Now we jump to our server. So we go to our entity handler. And now we need to set up our route for this. All right, cool. So we set up our route. So it's going to give us a red here until I fix it, but that's okay. Perfect. So now we need to read our ID. Then we're going to construct a vector 3. I actually let's go to our math. So now I can just call vector 3 from packet, pass in on our packet, and we're good to go. Because it has an internal storage, basically. So at this point, I'm not going to update it on the server. I'm just going to send it out. Okay, cool. Now on our right, we need an int data 0 because we're passing in the, we need the pass in the ID. Then it's going to be 3 floats. So 1, 2, 3. And believe it or not, that should be what we need to be an idiot. Hang on. I did not create a network, so I need net object, add component, network. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to pre-apply it to both of them. So in our rigid body controller, network game behavior. So then in our second one, we also want a network game behavior. What that's going to do for us is a couple of things, but let's go ahead and just start this up. we're going to, first off, actually, we need to do a build. So, builds, select folder. Come here. Come here. What an ass. She just walked right away. Yeah, you heard me call you an ass? Alright. So what we're going to do here is start up this server. Eventually what I'm going to do is we're going to have authority for all of these. So you have to have the correct player ID, you have to have the correct session ID, and that's going to be hooked up to the entity. So if you try to move an entity that you don't own, the game will flip out. Alright, so we spawned a player. Ooh. But let's see if... yeah, X, Y, and Z. Ooh. There, I didn't want it to slow our server down, so it should be better now. Okay, so the good news is that it was actually updating. Ooh, that's interesting. So, hold on. Our rigid body is set as object 0, while our sphere is object 4. That's our problem. We are not setting the player's network game behavior object ID. So unfortunately I do have to do another build, but I think we're actually pretty good. Okay. Alright, so we just gotta wait, which is okay. We'll restart the server though, because we're gonna have 2 objects. I'm gonna stop the server for now because we got this. This is gonna be in the background doing its own thing. You said that you had a game icon for this. Can you send that to me? Because I'd love to add that to the build. Okay, cool. So now we can start this guy up. All right. Come on, tell me that it didn't just freeze up on me and it's actually gonna work. There we go. The game icon. Alright, so we're gonna move back a little bit. Start this guy up. So the sphere is object woo 4. Well, this is object 1. You know, I need to remove some of those. Okay. Entire solution. We don't need this got data anymore. We don't need that anymore. We don't need that anymore. And we don't need that anymore. What we do need to do move. Entity move. So we'll go to our entity manager. We don't have we're fine. So we start this up. Better than nothing at this point. Cool. So we're going to player object. Let's spawn a net object. Okay. So 7 moved. My ID is 5. My ID is 8. 8. 5. 8. So 7 moved. What we really need to do is 2 things. To prevent our network from getting too crazy with messages, no, this should be last transform, like that. Then we'll set and this dot transform is not equal to last transform. Then we'll set last transform equals to this dot transform. No, that's going to create a reference. No, we're going to do position. Vector 3 position. It's better to do it this way anyway. Then we'll say and this dot transform dot position is not equal to position. And then we'll set position equal to this dot transform dot position. I think it's may still. You know what I'm gonna do though? We'll do that. It may still. Yeah, no, it's not super great, but it's better than nothing. Jesus. Okay, cool. So it looks like okay. So what I'm gonna do is I'll do some interesting things with this, but I think for now we're okay. So let's create our player. Backwards a little bit. And then create our net player. So we're gonna go over it. So yeah, so it should take a look at number 89. It's moving, so it's updating only while I'm moving, which is really good. That's what we want. That really, really lowers the network load for anything that's going on. So I need to find out why my sphere is... Why is my sphere incorrect? But my player itself spawning into T12. 11 moved, my ID is 9, which is the player itself. So why are the IDs out of sync? That's the question. So we'll go ahead and take a look at that. So let's start from ground zero, which would be our entity handler. when we spawn a new entity, we send one entity here, which is going to be to the player, and then one entity here, which is to everyone. And we want to disregard the player if it's the player's one. Then that could be. I doubt it, but we'll do it. Yep, oops. I doubt this is going to solve the problem, but we'll do this. Oops. Dude, I literally... Oh no, it would be different. It would absolutely be different. That was the problem. No, now that I'm thinking about it, that was exactly our problem. And I'll explain why. It was another order of operations issue for those of you who've been watching for a short time. Okay. Ooh. So the sphere is object ID of 1, and this is object ID of 0. So where is the sphere? Okay, so I need to figure out why exactly. That's being a weirdo, but that's okay. Alright, so I'm going to explain exactly what was happening here. And then we'll figure out what we want to do from there. So we're going to we're in an entity ent equals entity manager spawn new entity, and then get ent.ent.id. So I'm actually off stream after I'm done with this, going to do something really cool, and I think you guys will really enjoy that. But essentially what was happening, so let me double check my entity manager so I'm not looking like an asshole when this still doesn't work correctly. So we need to initialize this as 0. So before our packet handler, we're going to do entity manager dot in. So what we're going to do is we are going to spawn this in. Okay, so we have object ID of 0. That should never be 0. like, I understand that it's 0 here, but when I spawn a new entity, so I'll explain what was happening. We're making 2 calls to command send all, and when we were generating our ID here, what was happening was it was actually spawning 2 entities on the server side. Okay. Data 1. That's our problem. So now one. All right, so there's our sphere. And it's walking around. And I'm controlling that on this screen, so I'll kind of show you a little bit so you can see left, right, forwards, backwards, left, right. So we have that done. Indeed. So I'm gonna, okay, you can be there if you want. So I'm gonna add actually 2 more little spheres. Cool. So now we actually have a pair of little spheres to kind of show the rotation. So let's now handle our rotations. Okay, so now entity handler on entity rotate. Once again, so we need to send X, Y, Z. Okay. Now in our handler, we need to have a So I'm actually in here. I'm gonna wait for this to undo itself, or to do its thing, because what I'm going to be doing next is adding in some libraries that are going to allow us to linearly interpolate to linear interpolate our movement. And that is going to smooth out the movement between our two systems. So the first thing I want to grab and put in the project is going to be iTween. It's very small, very light, does what you need it to. Okay. So it should be pixel placements should be in here somewhere. It is not. Oh, okay, it's there. All right, so the second thing I need to worry about is the iTween native extension, which I own. So import. Now this is a very, very helpful script, because there's a lot that you can do. I purchased it a lot earlier than that. There's a lot that you can do with it. So essentially, so we're going to reload all. Our entity manager, our network game behavior here, we're just setting this to the position. Now the reason, and I'm going to draw this out again, because I know that I'm just, doing this for posterity. I know a lot of the people that are watching currently probably aren't super interested in this sort of thing, but I just kind of want to, for future people who are looking at this stuff and wanted to see how the game was made, that sort of thing. Okay, so here's our objects again, right? So I'm going to kind of cross those out, and then I'm going to put a thing across the page. So when you have an entity in your game, we are synchronizing that movement every millisecond. So, right? So it's 0.1 seconds. Right? 0.1 seconds. That means that when it updates, when I move, it's going to update my position with the server every 0.1 millisecond, or every 0.1 seconds. So that means it's basically on the game side, it's looking kind of like this. Right? So basically, however far I move from the original location to the new location, it's going to just jump there, right? It's not going to slowly go from there to, to there. So it's just going to jump. What we need to do is we need to tell the game that we need to start from here and move to that location real slowly. So we need to kind of add these little arrows in, right? Because beforehand, it kind of looked like without the arrows. So the way we're gonna do that is by, I'm going to reload this again, dot move transform dot move. Wait a minute, it should be this dot game object maybe, move to, yep. So the way that we're going to do that is we need to move that to our new, oops, no, this is not what we're doing. I'm an idiot, hold on. We're sending the command here, not receiving it. We're receiving it on the entity move. So this position needs to be moved. So it should be this dot game object dot move to. We're going to move to the position. We are going to do that by 0.1 milliseconds, and we're going to have a 0 delay. So that should work. And we're only going to do that on one side. We're not worried about the other side at the moment. But I do want to restart our server. You want to see these move? Give me a second. It's loading so I can spawn in. There we go. So there's my player. And here is my network object. So you can see that the position is updated much more fluidly now. So I think we would probably add a little bit to that for the response time between the server and the client, but I think for now it's actually pretty good. So you can see that it's not jumping around like it was. It's also not rotating, but that's okay. But you can see now it's very smooth. I don't know where the other player is now, so it's like, oh, okay. Let's keep going backwards. There we go. Cool. So a little bit of stuttering, but not too much. And like I said, we can fix that by updating this. So we're gonna go 0.3 milliseconds. Look, time dot delta time, and that will kind of fix it a little bit as well. Okay, so we're going to move this backwards a little bit. And then spawn in our other player. So that's tending to be even slower. Or tending to be even more That's okay. So that's tending to be even better in terms of the the movement. So that's looking pretty good so far. Okay, so let's get on to our rotation so we can actually rotate those objects. So on our read, we are going to construct a quaternion. And send that back. So this is vector 3. We're going to do quaternion. Let's move. Quaternion. Okay. So we know that works. Now we need to do rotate 2. That Euler angles time that delta time times 0.3f. We're not going to delay it at all. So now our rotation will rotate correctly. And it should be pretty interesting because we should actually be able to see the eyes tilt up and down and all that kind of stuff based on, what's going on. So in our entity manager, or entity handler, sorry, we're going to construct a thing here. So we're going to do int id equals p.read int. Then we're going to get a series of floats. So int x p.read float. We're gonna using floats. Alright, so y z. So we're going to construct this. So quaternion rotation equals quaternion from Euler rotation. So we need an x, y, and a z. And then we're good to go. Yep, good to go. Now we just pass in our rotation. And this will be on entity rotate. Now we take this and that's done. Oops. We just change these to P for packet. And our client side is done. Now we can copy our move read and move right for our rotate. Because it's literally exactly the same thing, except this is rotate. Literally exactly the same thing. Perfect. So we can actually start our server because we're good to go now. On our client side, though, we need to set up. Oh, actually, we're not good to go. Now we should be good to go on this side too. Gotta wait for it to build, and then we can do our second test. Ooh, get the puppy. Get that puppy. Go get her. Okay, so we can go ahead and run our builds now. Perfect. We're good to go now. Alright, so let's go ahead and spawn this in. Once we get the rotation to go, then we're going to start working on the leveling stuff. So the mapping stuff. So that we can start, defining different maps and stuff. All right. Oh boy. So why am I rotating to that position? It should be on rotate. On rotate, rotate read. Rotate read. So it should be rotating to there. And then network game behavior. An entity rotate, game object rotate to, Euler angles. Rotate. Oh. unfortunately, that is going to require a rebuild. Alright, so we'll rebuild this and we should be good to go on that. Hey James, you planning on heading to bed pretty soon? Oh my god, okay, cool, that was awesome. Nope. Fix it in a minute. Alright. Nala, come on, I need you to move high. Thank you. Okay. There we go. It's not rotating upwards, but that's okay, because I think it's... Well, you know what? I think we've done a lot today, so why don't we go ahead and call the stream here so that you can head to bed. Alright, well, I want to thank you guys so much for watching. We got a lot done today. We're going to be doing some more stuff probably in a bit. But like I said, I want to thank you guys so much for watching, and we will see you guys in the next stream. Peace.